Very good. That's our festival director, Mr. Hoffman. How do you do?
Very happy to have you.
Nice to see you.
All happy to have you.
Thank you very much. They want a photograph. Hello.
Oprah, yeah.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see from the super excited response here at the Jaipur Literary Festival, I do not need to introduce at all my next guest. We all love, admire and respect Oprah Winfrey so immensely. She's easily the most loved and influential person on television anywhere in the world. Isn't that right? Did you know, listen to this guys, did you know that poll after poll in the United States of America routinely says Oprah Winfrey has way more credibility than any president or any head of state? And I am seeing so many young girls and women in the audience today, and women especially love Oprah, don't we? In fact, women routinely say that Oprah Winfrey is the person across the world that they admire and love the most. But here's the important thing about Oprah Winfrey. Her impact goes well beyond television. She's remarkable and inimitable on television, but that's not, according to me, where her real impact is. It's in the world that exists outside the television studio. Many people say that Barack Obama could not have become president had Oprah Winfrey not endorsed him. We're at a literature festival. Oprah's book club has revived the love for reading in an age of 140 characters on Twitter and diminishing attention spans. She's brought back authors literally from the dead by reviving a love for classics. And most movingly, she's blunt and outspoken in her advocacy for causes that matter to her. Girls, issues of gender, issues of race. In fact, just this month, the first graduation has taken place for the Leadership Academy in South Africa, a special school that is set up for African girls. Yay for that! And while the lady sitting next to me is remarkable on TV, I think the most remarkable part of her that perhaps some of us don't know that well is her own remarkable journey to get to where she's got. Born to rural poverty in Mississippi, she grew up with her grandmother, who's a wise woman, who said when she was just a kid that Oprah had a special gift. She's tirelessly advocated for victims of sexual abuse, bravely sharing her own experience of having been abused as a child. You've got to hand it to her for doing that. And she is, as I said, out there, empathetic on the one hand, and driven and outspoken in her ideological convictions on the other hand. As a woman, as a TV person, and as an Indian, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Oprah Winfrey to the Jaipur Literature Festival.
You did that so well. I'm looking to see, is there a prompter? You're just talking?
Are you giving me a job?
I would welcome giving you a job. You know, I have a network. You just did that? You just...
From the heart.
That was amazing. Because I'm looking to see, where are you reading?
There's no prompter.
There is no prompter. Bravo.
Thank you. That's the best compliment I've ever got.
That's good.
You can see, just from the reaction here, how much people are excited to see you here. How you've been mobbed by cameras, sometimes not so pleasantly. People are fixated with you here in India. I've got to ask you. You know what I'm going to ask you.
No, I don't even know what you're going to ask.
Okay.
I don't.
See, this is the problem with interviewing the master.
Yeah.
All right. I've got to ask you, what struck you about India the most, that standout thing that you're going to take back with you? Because I know you've met Indians from all classes, all walks of life. You've been in the slums in Mumbai. You've dined and partied with the glitterati. You've met ordinary middle class and upper middle class women.
Right.
You've seen the sights. What strikes you?
What strikes me, what is impressed, I have three things majorly. So can I do three instead of one?
Yeah.
What has struck me the most is arriving in Mumbai, and I was with my goddaughter, my best friend's daughter, and we were driving, being driven, And she said, you know, this is like being in a video game. And we don't know which way to look. And you're like, oh my gosh, is that car going to hit us? And so my first impression was that it's a bit chaotic. And then I realized there is an underlying calm or flow, that everybody else here gets the flow, and that as a foreigner, you have to get in and move with the flow. Now, before we came here, Deepak Chopra, great thought leader of our times, I had called him wanting to do an interview with him, and he said he was going to be coming to India. And I have a vision board. I keep a vision board. First vision board I ever started was to get Barack Obama elected. So I just had Barack Obama, and then I went back, and that vision board was right by in my bathroom by the bathtub. So every morning I would say, Barack Obama president, Barack Obama president. And then, this is in 2007, and then I decided I had to go back and put 2008 so that whoever was listening would know I didn't mean Barack Obama president 2012 or 2016. So I only had that as a vision. And then I put a picture, after Barack Obama won, I put a picture I cut out of a magazine of a woman on a camel, and it said, come to India. Come to India. And I've held that as my vision on my vision board for the past 3 years. So when this idea of coming with Deepak, I went, now it's time to fulfill the vision. So first impression, coming in the city, chaotic, and then being in the city with more people than I've ever encountered in my life. But still feeling not a sense of being unsafe. I was feeling like there's a calmness underneath all of this. What is going on? So what I will take with me is the sense of calmness, the fact that, and as I was speaking to Deepak yesterday, I was saying, what is it? There is no rage. Even though there's lots of people in the street and there's lots going on, there's a genuine respect and the sense of karma. The fact that the biggest thing I will take away is that people just don't talk religion here, they live it. They live their practice. I'm most impressed with the fact that, you know, and I've been in Calabar, where the family were 6 by 6 feet. 5 people slept in the same room, but it's a father raising and mother raising their 3 daughters. And there's an altar in their home. And I've been at Ashwarya's and Ashwarya and Abhishek's home, and there's an altar in their home. I've been in middle class homes, there's an altar, and that the practice of going inward and looking at yourself and something greater than yourself is an actual practice every day. It's not just something people talk about.
So basically you figured out that there's a method to our madness.
Yes. I'm not sure what the method is.
Yeah, we don't know.
I don't know what the method is.
We don't know either.
No, like, what is it with the red lights? I mean, does the red light mean stop or not? Or is it just there for your entertainment? I don't get it. What is it? I mean, the light is red and everybody just keeps going. But you all seem to know what you're doing. I can tell you this. I would never be able to drive in this. Not doing that. Not doing that. No. Okay, that's 1, 2. Yeah. And then 3 would be the sense of family tradition. Now, when I had Ashwarya and Abhishek on my show, I was asking the question, as Americans do, like, how on earth do you all live with your parents? What is that all about? And he said to me, what is that all about that you don't? And it's the kind of thing that is really a foreign concept to those of us in America, because you're just waiting to get out of the house. But having spent some time and having a dinner at the home of a family with 4 generations in one house, I now get it. I really get the sense of how really glorious it is that this is a country that has no respect for nursing homes because you take care of your family and you don't put your family in nursing homes. I think that's, I'm most amazed by that.
Before I get into asking you a little bit about the families you met, you said it was this vision board with the woman sitting on a camel. So I got to ask you, did you sit on a camel?
No.
Why?
Well, no one's offered me one yet.
Okay.
No, but I did. I did go to the Queen's house the other night, and Princess Dia, and as I entered, there were the camels and the elephants, and I went, oh, there's the vision board. There they are. I'm not riding one, but there they are. Yes.
You know that now that you've said no one's offered you one, when you exit, there's going to be a line of camels at the door. Like, I just know it's going to happen. So we better get ready for that shot. More seriously, you spent time with a family in a slum in Mumbai, where you met this little girl, Anchal.
Anchal.
And I know from talking to your team that you were absolutely moved by her. Tell us a little bit about what this little girl represented to you.
Well, it's important to me, you know, I'm doing shows, my new series on OWN is called The Next Chapter. And it was important for me to do this country and try to represent a broad point of view and not just show one thing. And we all know that there are millions and millions and millions of poor people in this country, and we all know that the slums are bad. But it is my role, and I think I've taken as my responsibility, to be a connector to the human heart space. So it's important for me that when I'm telling a story, I want people to feel and know that the heart of the people that you're watching is the same as your heart. So they may come from different circumstances, but it's all the same. So I didn't want to show the absolute worst. I remember being in Africa several years ago, and a member of my staff, a producer, had been in a village in Africa, and they came back and they had this footage of a child eating out of a trough with a pig. And I said, I won't be showing that, because that isn't the only impression, and that is an impression that would be a lasting impression. And so I don't want to show that, because if you were a viewer sitting at home in America or India or wherever, and you see the child eating out of a trough with a pig, you think that demeans the humanity of that child. So it was important to me to go to the slums, but not show the worst of the worst, because what I wanted was for people to see that people can live in poverty but still have a sense of hope and meaning in their lives. And so my team has been here, members of my team have been here since Christmas, day after Christmas, looking for families that were the best representation of various and diverse. So for me, education is the most important thing in the world, because it opens the door to freedom and possibility. And my team knows that I really appreciate educating girls, because when you, no disrespect to men, but when you educate a girl, you change her family, you change her community, you change. So they were looking for, particularly, a family that had girls in it. And so this little 11-year-old girl was all I could do not to say, can I take you home? And every time I go home, my partner Stedman says, I come to the airport wondering how many children have you brought with you.
And how many
This time none. This time none. But I was so impressed with her, because she lives in this tiny little space. I couldn't figure out how everybody slept in that. How did they sleep? Probably spoon fashion. And she still is a star in her class, and you know, wants to be a teacher and wants to be educated and wants to educate her little sisters. And so I am always, when I see that little girl, I think people watching will say, oh, my little girl's like that. And it humanizes the story in such a way that it makes people connect. That's why I wanted to do it.
I found it interesting, because you're so attached to Africa, that particular image that you described, you said you didn't want to show that back home. Is there a sense that you had coming into India and having seen all of our paradoxical realities, the rich, the poor, the glitterati, the impoverished, that you did not want to go back home with just a picture postcard of poverty? That this is a crazy, complex, contradictory country.
It is. And that's why if you show people eating garbage, then people think that those people are not like me. If you show somebody who's living in dire circumstances but still wants the opportunity for a better life for themselves, that makes you connect to them. It's still the same story. It's the same story, but it allows you to see that there is light in the story. And you know, my whole reason for creating a network is literally to bring little pieces of light, is to continue to spread little pieces of light in the world, to illuminate the possibility of the human spirit, so that I see in this 11-year-old Anchal the possibility for my own daughter. I see the possibility for her own life. So that's really what I'm trying. I'm a connector.
You are.
I'm a connector with stories. I use stories to connect people and show our humanity, not our lack of humanity.
I mean, your empathy is, I think, what makes you so mesmerizing, Oprah, but you also met with the widows of Vrindavan.
Ooh, yeah.
That must have been a bit of a chilling experience, because even for many of us, we're cloistered from that reality. Sometimes we don't want to confront it.
Well, I have to say that meeting with the widows caused a shift in my own consciousness. You know, as I was saying, I wanted to use and chose to use this platform of television for illumination. But there was a moment standing there with Dr. Giri, who was taken in as many widows as her, you know, pocketbook will allow, that I realized that the marginalization, you know, I've spoken for years about the marginalization of women. I've spoken for years on my shows about the need for women to own their own voices and to be able to hold the space for themselves. And that the greatest freedom in the world, that the reason for freedom is that you get to decide for yourself what to do with your life. That's what real freedom is. And I am not just an advocate of that, I live that, you know, being a woman who stands inside herself. So standing in the ashram with all of these widows who have been discarded simply because their husbands died, the shift for me was, this should not be allowed to happen. I immediately emailed my friend Maria Shriver, who for years has held the women's conference in the state of California, and I said to send her the pictures of the widows and said, you and I have to combine our efforts, and we have to get with every other woman that we know to combine our efforts to make sure this kind of thing gets eradicated in the world. It doesn't make any sense where intelligent women stand to allow the pervasive discrimination of a woman because her husband died for something you don't have any control over. So you become a second-class citizen. But I also had a aha moment in the midst of it, because it's so easy to judge and say, oh my God, look at what they're doing. In the midst of interviewing Dr. Giri, she said, you know, it happens, because I was asking, is it just is it a caste thing, situation, or is it a class situation? Because certainly if you are a woman of privilege and your husband dies, this doesn't happen to you. And she said, you know, it's subtle. It's subtle. When you're a woman of privilege and your husband dies, you just don't get invited to as many parties. You're not included. It's true? And, you know, when she said that, for the first time I thought, you know, I've never spoken to widows in the United States. I'm sure it's true all over the world. That it's all over the world it happens. What I saw with the widows, with her, is the extreme, but you just become a little less in the eyes of your friends because they think that death is contagious. And if it happened to you, then it reminds me that it could happen to me. So I think that attitude and the shifted attitude needs to happen, and the shifted consciousness needs to happen all over the world. But certainly here, I'm going to be working with Dr. Giri to see what I can do to support that. It's one thing to support the widows. And as she was saying, a shame you have to to chant all day for 2 rupees and a handful of rice, and you're discarded by your families. That doesn't make any sense to me. I couldn't understand the paradox of a country that loves its family, that loves its tradition, that has such respect and honor for its elders, and then how do you get cast aside because your husbands die? Women outlive men all over the world. So automatically being made a second-class citizen. So that's a big issue for me.
You have, as you said, been exposed to the paradoxes of India. The Gujarati...
India is a paradox.
India is a paradox.
Yes.
Did you find that you had an image of India from that vision board in your head, and you came here and some of your own views or your assumptions were revised? Did something surprise you?
I would say that I came here with an open mind and had not just my mind open, but an expanded heart. I would say, as I said to, I've been emailing back to my friends and texting, that this is really one of the greatest, if not the greatest, life experience I've ever had. And the reason is that when you're in the heart of India, whether it be Jaipur or Agra or, you know, Mumbai or out in the countryside with the widows, you feel like you're in the center of something bigger and greater than yourself. And you feel like although everybody, for the most part, looks the same, a lot of Indians in India, that there's still so much diversity that you feel like you're in a part of humanity, that your humanity is being expanded in a way that you just don't, I just don't feel in, or haven't felt in other places. Because, you know, as we're driving through Agra, there I saw a picture of an ox pulling a cart with some metal beams in it. And I know that ox was I was thinking that ox is thinking, I wasn't made for pulling steel. And on one side, the ox is like, whoa, this is too much. And then on one side, there's a woman in a pink sari, with beaded sari, with a motorcycle helmet on it, sitting on the side. And alongside her is a guy on a donkey. So I go, I guess this is India.
This is India.
Yeah, we're not in Chicago anymore, that's for sure. So I feel opened by the experience. I feel expanded. I feel like enriched, deepened and enriched, which I think that's what real travel is supposed to do. And nothing, there is no travel that's worth anything unless you get to meet the people. The reason why this was such an enriching experience is because at one of the homes in Mumbai, I sat with 5 women from different generations, different backgrounds, different social classes, and so for me, all the experience is about talking to the people. You know, the buildings are fine, the Taj Mahal, beautiful, really nice. He really loved her, I would like to say. He really, really, really loved her to build that monument. But that's all well and good, but it means nothing, as you know, without the people. And all experiences, as I have come to know, experiences or a piece of cake, whatever it is better if you can share it.
You think you're...
Better if you can share it, yes.
You think you're going to ask for a Taj Mahal to be built for you?
I think it would be completely unnecessary. I think my life has been the Taj Mahal. I do.
I have to ask you, will you come again?
Yes. And the reason why is because, you know, we spent more time here doing a story than I've spent anywhere. And we thought, oh, gee, you can get a good picture of what the story will be here. You can't. You have to come back again, and then you have to come back again. I met a wonderful cardiologist the other day who has a center in Delhi. I don't remember his name. Deepak, you know his name? Yeah, okay.
Trehan, Dr. Trehan.
Dr. Trehan.
Yeah.
And the stories he was telling me about the work that he was doing in infusing traditional medicine with what we call in the United States alternative medicine. so interesting to me. And so I thought, gee, I'd love to tell that story. And then I met people that I'd love to tell that story, so I have to come back. I have to come back.
That's
yes.
good to hear.
We'd
love to have you back. Wouldn't we? We'd love to have her back.
This is so, you know what is so amazing to me? I don't know why I didn't know this, but because I knew we were on in 121 countries, but I'm really sort of focused in my own world in Chicago and now in California with the network. So we're sitting in the hotel in Mumbai with my goddaughter, and she said, do they get the show here? And I said, I don't think so. I know now you do. And she said, you don't think so? I said, no, we wouldn't have had that much problems in customs if we had gotten a show here. Because the guy looked at he looked at it, and then he looked at it again. You know that moment where you're standing there and you're wondering, is my name in a computer? And then you hear a little beeping sound, and I thought, oh, my bells are going off. It actually was a car outside backing up, but anyway.
Now, I think what's so special about you is that you give a voice to the ordinary and to the people who live on the margins, especially when it comes to women and girls. Does that come, before I ask you about South Africa and the school there, does that come from your own experience? I know, and I read this, that not just did you grow up in poverty and fight it, you sometimes wore dresses made from potato sacks to go to school. You knew what it was like to face the discrimination of growing up black in America. Did your own experience make you grow up, get all this privilege, self-made completely, and say, I'm not going to allow this to happen to other girls. I'm going to change it for them?
And where are the questions coming from? Do you don't have a sheet of paper?
You've got to give me a job.
Really good, really good, really good. Certainly, everyone here, you're the product of everything that's ever happened to you. You are who you are in this moment because of everything that's ever happened to you, everything that you carried forward for yourself. So certainly, being born a child of poverty in what was really apartheid America at the time had a big influence on who I am today. I would say I was born at the right time, because the greatest gift to me is that even though I was born in a segregated southern United States, Mississippi at the time, my great fortune was that I was never put in a segregated school. So for not one moment was I ever indoctrinated with the idea that I was less than anybody else. I could feel it all around me. I could feel that my grandmother's greatest hope for me was that I would one day grow up and be a maid like herself. She wanted me to, wanted me to be able to work for a family that she would just say, I hope you get some good white folks. I hope you get some good white folks. Because that's her dream. That was her dream for me, is that I would be able to work for a family that would be able to give me some level of respect and, you know, maybe let me take clothes home. I mean, it wasn't even her dream that I could become a teacher in a segregated school, but just that I would be able to work for a family that would not disrespect me. So my grandmother never lived to see that I became an educated woman and was able to do all the things that I have done. But the truth is this: somewhere inside myself, my grandmother had raised me to be religious and going to church, and I had developed a personal relationship with God. And my personal relationship with that which is greater than myself is the fundamental reason why I was able to hold on. Because I could believe that there was a life bigger than my front yard. I could believe that there was something greater than what my grandmother saw for me. I could believe that, I actually did believe, you know, the Bible says that we are God's children, and I would go to sermons and hear the minister preach about you're God's child. So I thought he was my daddy, because I didn't have a daddy. So I thought, oh, God is my daddy. And so, growing up believing that God is my Father and through God I can do all things, that's the fundamental reason why I think that in the midst of everything that I was told to believe about myself, and we all know you become what you believe, not what you think or what you want. It's what your your heart believes that you can be. It's holding on to the vision of what you can be. It's what Deepak and I were saying yesterday. You can either see yourself as a wave in the ocean, or you can see yourself as the ocean. So I believe that I belong to the greater ocean that is the sea of God. And so for that reason, I've never believed that there was a ceiling. I didn't believe it when people told me that you couldn't be or you couldn't do. I just didn't believe it. Just didn't believe it. So I acted like I could.
And you did.
And then I did. That's what happened. That's what happened. Which is, I will have to say, the great gift is, though, that I was never put in a school. My life would have been completely different had I been put in a segregated school with teachers telling me that I was less than. So by the time I went to kindergarten, I was almost 6 years old, but my grandmother had taught me to read the Bible. So I knew a lot of biblical terms from the Christian Bible. I went to kindergarten, and my first day there, I wrote on a sheet of paper all the names of the disciples. I wrote Nicodemus, I wrote Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And my kindergarten teacher said, "Who wrote this?" And I said, "I did, because I know a lot of big words." And I got put in the first grade, my first day in kindergarten. And then that's when I learned to negotiate for yourself. That's why I first learned it. You got to speak up for yourself. And then this is what I learned in the third grade. In the third grade, I love to read, so it's so appropriate. I'm at the Jaipur Book Festival. Love to read. Third grade, I turned in a book report early. We were given an assignment. I turned mine in. You had 2 weeks. I turned it in the first week, like 2 or 3 days, because I was finished and wanted another book. I learned from that lesson in the third grade that when you are excellent, people pay attention. Because my third grade teacher told the fourth grade teacher, who told the fifth grade teacher. So that by the time I got to the fourth grade, they were like, "You're that kid that likes to read. I know you. You're the kid that turns in your things early." All the other kids hated me. All the other kids hated me. But I learned then that when you're excellent, people notice. And so I developed this principle of trying to be really, really, really good at whatever it is you are doing. You try to do that the very best, no matter if it's flipping fries at McDonald's or if it's working in a tailor shop and all your job is to fold the cloth. That whatever you do it really, 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 really good. You're the best. Then people notice that about you. They say, "I want that girl. I want the girl that folds the cloth that way." You know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's true.
To me, and I know to so many people here, one of the most moving, I would say, campaigns of your life has been to get justice for girls who are victims of sexual abuse. And you came out on your own show and spoke about being a victim of sexual abuse as a child. How difficult was it for you to do that, and what made you decide to do it?
Well, when I first started, when I was going to start my national television show, I had an attorney who came to me and said, "Is there anything that I should know about?" The guy who was running my company, "Is there anything I should know about?" And I said, "No." And as time went on, more and more things came out. He goes, "I asked you if there was anything I should know about." The reason it came out on the show is because I was interviewing somebody who was a victim of sexual abuse. And I wanted that person to know that she was not alone. And so it just came out. You know, in all of my shows, I'm always looking for what is the thread of truth. And my producers will tell you that over the years, I've done thousands of shows. And actually, the greatest lesson for me about truth came when I was interviewing skinheads in the Ku Klux Klan. And in that moment, I realized this is a platform. It's not just a show. It's a platform. And it's a platform for an energy exchange. And I am putting energy out into the world that is not resonating as positive energy. And I don't want to do that anymore. And I learned that with the Ku Klux Klan. But to answer your question, when I was interviewing the woman who was sexually abused, I had done it a couple of years earlier, interviewed a woman. And I so wanted to tell her. I so wanted to say, that happened to me too. And I didn't have the courage to do it. And I thought if I ever got an opportunity again, I would not hide in shame about it, but that I would let that other person know. So I really just did it for that one person. I wasn't thinking about everybody else. And then after I did it, because when you've never told anybody, you think you're the only one. So when I first heard somebody say it, I went, oh my God, this happened to somebody else. So then I interviewed somebody else. Oh, it happened to somebody else. So I wanted her to know that this too had happened to me. And then, you know, it seemed like millions of other women said it also happened to me. Yeah. In our country, the statistic says 1 out of 4 women. I don't know, it could be higher. I certainly believe that it's higher in Africa. I see you're holding The Color Purple. There's a wonderful line, those of you who've seen The Color Purple, where the character that I played, Sophia, says, all my life I had to fight. I had to fight my uncles, had to fight my brothers, had to fight my cousins. I never thought I had to fight in my own house. A girl child ain't safe in a world full of men, she says. A girl child ain't safe in a world full of men. And so, when I read that book, The Color Purple, for the first time, I thought, again, it happened to someone else. Yeah. So.
And then you got the Clinton administration to actually put through what was known as the Oprah bill, a database of all offenders against little girls who've been sexually
but you know, as I finished my show, Barker, one of the things that I said at the end of the show was that my deepest regret is that I wasn't able to make a big enough, wasn't able to move forward the understanding throughout the world of what that means. Because everybody thinks that it's the actual, you know, act of being molested or abused. It isn't. It's the shame that it causes. Yeah. And that shame that colors and really, for many girls and boys, I'm now finding out, defines who they are for the rest of their life. It's them, it's the story that they tell themselves about who they are after being abused. So you're right, the act itself is minimal compared to the lasting impact and its effect. So getting people to see that you are not your circumstances, you are not what happened to you, but you are what is possible for you, has been one of my goals, one of my missions, because of what happened to me. And I know how long I you know, sort of suffered in shame and embarrassment about it, and wanted other people. You know, life, your information, everything you have is better when you share it. And as soon as that's why I love sharing ideas, I love sharing experiences, and I love sharing what I have with other people. And my other people just happens to be you, the world.
You've obviously committed yourself in many ways to improving the lives of young girls. And the Leadership Academy in South Africa, the first graduating class, just passed out. Tell us a little bit about that.
I was saying yay because it is no small thing taking on a school from scratch 8,000 miles away. So this idea started when I was sitting in Nelson Mandela's living room in 2002, and we were having a conversation about poverty and what could you do to begin to change poverty. The only way I know, I said, is through education, because that's the open door. That's how you unlock everything, so people have choices. And I said, you know, one day I'd like to build a school in South Africa, a girls' school. And he jumped up out of his chair and said, you want to build a school? He calls the Minister of Education that day. I was thinking one day I wanted to build a school. I wasn't thinking that day. But the process started. I met with the Minister of Education by that evening. It was a dream that I'd held within myself for a while. Why? Because I tried other ways, and I think this is true for everybody. Your life on earth expands exponentially when you can find a way to give what you have to somebody else. And it doesn't matter what that is. I'm in a position where I can do that in big ways, but in every single person who hears me right now, if you can look inside yourself and figure out how you can just take what you have. For some of you, it's your ability to listen. It's your ability to be a friend. It's your ability to connect. For some, it's like you actually can do physical things, like you can cook, or you can bake, or you can sew, or you can share opportunities, or you can open a door for somebody, or you can be, use your kindness and your grace in a way so that the energy of yourself moves out into the world in a way that when that comes back to you, it gives to you. That is the reason why I am so enriched and so blessed. Because every day for 25 years, I spoke to millions of people around the world. And I would get on the elevator, go downstairs in silence every single day before every show, either have a short little prayer or just silence, with the intention that every single show would land in the heart and mind of whoever was watching in such a way that they would feel the light of whatever it was I was trying to do. That is how I live. I live with, and just before coming on here today, you know, I'm not just speaking for myself, but I want the energy of God, the space of God. I mean, you know, my favorite quote is, "In God I live and move and have my being," to speak through me so that something that is said here through you and through myself will reach you in such a way that you use yourself, because it's really all about using your life. I'm going to make sure that the series that we're doing here in India, all of you get to see. But yesterday, speaking with Deepak, it was so powerful because we're talking about the multitude of galaxies on Earth and how really it is a miracle that each one of us gets to exist and gets to exist at this particular time. When you just think about it, the chances of you being here, I mean, the little sperm hitting the egg, swimming up the channel, and there lands, just, yeah, go back all the way there. And then there it lands, and bam, there we are. Just the fact that we are here and are alive at this time, and what each of us brings to each other. You know, in Africa, there's this wonderful expression called Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. And my entire school is founded on that principle of I am because we are. It means without you, this wouldn't be possible. So I built the school, going from village to village, looking for girls who were just like myself. Like myself in that born poor, as I was, raised by a grandmother, no running water, no electricity, living in, you know, what most people would call poverty. But the thing about it, you don't know you're poor till somebody tells you, and you have something to compare it to. And then you go, damn, I was poor. So I was looking for girls like that who had the ability and the desire to succeed, to be leaders in the world, because that's how you're going to change the world, one woman at a time through leadership. Leadership is the key. So I wanted to build a leadership academy that, in spite of the patriarchal society, which most of those girls are raised, they would still be able to honor their society and their families, be respectful of it, appreciative of it, but hold on to themselves, have a voice for themselves that would allow them to be seated at the table wherever the future of the world is decided. That is what I wanted for these girls. And so created a school that allows that to begin to happen. The process of defining yourself, creating an identity for yourself that goes beyond other people's definition of who you can or should be.
We all know about your battles as a young girl, but now that you're this rock star.
No, I know some rock stars. I'm not a rock star.
Okay, superstar. I don't even know what words to use.
I've hung out with Bono a couple of times. That's a rock star, but okay.
The question is, do you feel that even as this immensely successful woman, do you feel that your gender makes your experience different? Do you feel the world scrutinizes you differently because you're a woman?
I don't feel that, because I don't allow myself to accept other people's criticism of me that is not valid. That is not valid. I appreciate I appreciate a good critique. I mean, I've learned some things in the earlier part of my career. I would read everything, and I remember reading when I first started doing a talk show in 1978 that said, you know, she talked so much, she ate the furniture, she ate the chairs, she ate the she didn't let anybody else get a word in. And I read that and I thought, yeah, I do talk too much. So I learned from that criticism to listen more. And I remember when we were going to Nelson Mandela's house for the first time, my partner Stedman, I was so nervous. And he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. Oh my God, it's 10 days, Nelson Mandela, what am I going to say? And he said, why don't you try listening? Which if you're sitting at Nelson Mandela's table, that's a good thing. There's nothing I can say to him. I should try listening, so.
You never got married. You said you're not the marrying kind. What's the marrying kind?
Well, I think based upon who I am right now, that would be very hard for me. If somebody were going to arrange a marriage for me, that'd be very difficult for me at this time. Although I think I'm too old now, right?
No.
Don't you pass a point where nobody's arranging anything anymore?
Can I ask you, since we are at the Literature Festival, there's a young girl holding the color purple, and you've got a book club that makes or breaks authors, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say makes or breaks. You know what? That book club started because, as most things start, very organically with me, and that is born out of what I wanted for myself. There was one of my producers and I who shared books, and every Christmas she would for a Christmas present still. Pick the book that I most liked that year, and she would have it leather bound and write an inscription or whatever. And we were sharing books, and she said, why don't we try this on TV? And I said, you can't do books on TV, Alice. Her name's Alice McGee. I go, Alice, you can't talk about books on TV because people don't even read books. They certainly aren't going to listen to you talk about books they haven't read. So she said, well, what if we could get people to read the book first? So we started with this idea of the book club on TV, and we started with just 5 little minutes at the back of a show. Let's just bury it so that we have the whole front show, and then if nobody watches the back end, that's okay. And it turned out that and then go on TV first and try to get as many people as you can to read the book. So we did that just as a little fun thing for ourselves, to entertain ourselves. And because I used to do this, those of you who are authors here, before I had a book club, I would look in the back of the book, you know, where your picture is, but then you meet them and they look nothing like their pictures. But that's the truth. You couldn't identify them in a lineup from that picture. But anyway, I used to go to the back of the book, see where the author lived, and call them. This is before cell phones and everything, and you people were actually listed in the phone book. And I would call up the authors to talk about the books, just because I loved talking about the books. And so after the book club, I thought, that's great. I won't have to track them down and talk to them. I can talk to them on my television show. So it started just for me and for one of my producers, Alice, and turned into this major idea of exposing the world to books. You know, I've had people who were 40 years old coming up to me saying they hadn't read a book since they were in high school, which is unimaginable to me, because that is what I do for pleasure. That is what I do to relax myself. If you were to think if people always say, I wonder what you're doing. Sometimes when I'm tweeting, people say, I wonder what you're doing. Well, if I wasn't tweeting, I would be, my ideal day is to be able to spend a day reading a great book and knowing I have another one to read. Because sometimes I'll be in the middle of a book. Does this happen to you? I was in the middle of a book, and then you have to slow when I was reading, Shantaram for the first time. I was so good that I thought, I've got to slow myself down because I'm going to get to the end. You get about 600 pages. Oh, no, if it's 600 pages, you got to slow yourself down. You only got 200 more pages left. So my ideal thing is knowing what is the next book. This is a good place to figure out what's the next book to read. Because I know what you're going to ask me now. What are you reading?
I wasn't going to ask.
You weren't going to ask that.
I can still have a couple of surprises,
okay,
even with Oprah Winfrey. My question was going to be, Toni Morrison's obviously a big favorite.
Oh, yes. Because I chose her more than him. She's my favorite living author. Actually.
She is?
Yes, my favorite living author. And, you know, even though a lot of people, you know, her magical realism is difficult for some people at first. I remember, you all listened to this, when I first called her up after reading Beloved.
Yeah.
I said, found her in the back of the book. She actually did look like her picture. Found her in the back of the book and couldn't get it directly. I remember calling the fire department in her city and asking them if they could call Toni Morrison for me. Anyway, I got her on the phone and I said, Miss Morrison, I just finished reading your book, Beloved, and I have to tell you, it took me some time because I was going over the pages. Does anyone ever tell you that they have to read the sentences and then go over them again and then go over them again? And she said, that, my dear, is called reading. That's it. So, yeah, when you have to go over it and then you have to, what happened on that last page and then, so yes, I'm very appreciative. I think I've read everything that she's done. Yeah.
As a poor student in New York, I used to save up to buy second-hand copies of her book.
Really?
Yeah, I love her too.
Do you have a favorite of hers?
Beloved.
Beloved?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Beloved actually isn't my favorite. Bluest Eye is my
really?
favorite. Yes, and the reason why, and that was her first one, and actually the simplest to read, I think, the easiest to read. And the reason why is because I did that book as a book club, and I thought it was really about black girls not loving themselves. And then we got emails and responses from women all over the world. We got Indian women who were darker-skinned Indian women who said, I know that story. We got Mexican women, I know that story. Chinese women, I know that story. That is my story. So I love it because it speaks to the core, what I believe, that without your own identity, without knowing who you are, you literally go insane. That there is no life without knowing who you are.
One of the really interesting things your book club has done is to revive the classics. Leo Tolstoy,
yes.
Marquez.
Yes.
I read somewhere that 800,000 extra copies had to be published of Anna Karenina because you recommended it.
Yes.
Why the classics?
Well, it was becoming more and more difficult for me because I was choosing all the books myself, and because people thought I had a whole team of people doing it. It was just me. You know, I would run into somebody who said, oh, I just read this book, Shantaram, as it happened to me in South Africa, and they said, you should read this book. That's how I would find books, the same way everybody else finds books. And when I was, you know, it got to be difficult sometimes to keep track of what was coming out and who was doing the book, because I was reading books just not for myself anymore. I was reading a book thinking, will 1 million other people, at least I need 1 million other people. I know 1 million's nothing here in this country. You can get 1 million people following you to the store in this country. In the United States, that's a lot of people, 1 million people. Here, oh, it's a restaurant. It's true. But so I would read the books and read the books, no longer read the books just for what I like, but I would think, gee, do I think at least 1 million other people will like this book? And so it got to be an issue for me, trying to find new books that I thought would be great material, and doing that every month. And so I knew I could depend on the classics. And I'd never read Anna Karenina. And so I thought, life is better when you share it. Much better if you have a bunch of other people reading along with you. And I was always intimidated by the Russian authors. And I broke my intimidation with using other people, bringing the whole world along.
Now, you've had a couple of controversies with the book club. James Frey, whom you demolished on live television for making up bits of his book.
Is the word demolished?
I think it is.
Okay.
Didn't you?
Well, you know what I would have to say about that. You know what she's talking about? James Frey. I would have to say, did you see the show that I did with him, the second show?
I did. When you called him back?
When I called him back.
Yeah.
that was a big lesson for me, because when everybody said that I demolished him or that I took him to the whipping post and I did all of that, I couldn't see it. I literally could not see that that is what I had done. This is the author who had come on the show for A Million Little Pieces, and I was so into that book and was so excited to have him on, and was defending him when people said it's impossible for somebody to go to the dentist and get their teeth pulled with no anesthesia. I go, no, he did it, he really did it. So I was very disappointed when I found out that parts of the book were not true, and very defensive on the air. When I look back at myself, I realized that it was 100% my ego trying to defend the turf, and that in all of my interviewing years, that I always come, no matter who I'm talking to, whether it's a guy, and I've done the worst, you know, I've done women who've murdered their children and fathers who've murdered their daughters and so forth. And I thought, when I looked at it again, years later, that I've had more compassion for murderers. And that I was defending my territory and defending my name and defending my brand of the book club, and in so doing had forgotten to be compassionate and had forgotten to listen to him, because I didn't even give him a chance to say anything. I was really on the attack. And so my apology to him was not for having said it or not for having defended it, but for the way in which I did it. The way in which I did it. I apologize for putting him on the spot and talking to him. I mean, he just told some stories that were not true, and I treated him like he had murdered someone. So I apologize for that.
Do you feel, and I know I ask you this because you are on Twitter, people say that Twitter, or using it as a metaphor for the internet, the social media, is diminishing our attention spans, it's stopping us from reading. Do you feel that?
I do.
You worry about that?
Yes, because when I'm on it, I think I could be reading a book right now. Yeah, I do. I think it is, I think, Deepak, you should speak about this later, because I saw you on the news talking about this the other day, about how there's a part of our brain that when you're on the computer and you're on Twitter and you're doing that all the time, it has the same effect on the brain as alcohol or drugs. And so I think that you can get, I've gotten lost in it myself, where I start tweeting, then I answer somebody else, then I answer somebody else, and I answer somebody else. Before you know it, I've been sitting there for an hour. That's an hour of my time. And now, what have I done? What am I saying? I'm talking about nothing. And I could have been spending that time more usefully. Do you all not find that with yourselves?
Yeah.
Has everybody in here signed my no phone driving?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because this is what I'd like to say. Texting while driving is stupid. It's stupid. In India, it's insane. You cannot text and drive in India when the people don't obey the red light. Oh my gosh. It's insane. You can't do it. It's crazy. Go ahead.
No, because I'm getting the sign that we've got limited time. So as we end, I've got to ask you, America's heading for another election.
I knew you were going
to. Oh, I have to.
I'm so out of politics. I'm so out of it.
Will you endorse him again?
I already have.
I know, but do you feel as strongly about it as you did the first time around?
Oh, no. I believe in him. I love him. I appreciate him. I think that he has done, you know, of course you make mistakes. You're walking into the White House. Yeah. You have the whole world waiting to see what you're going to do, watching your every move. And he's a man. He's a man. And I mean that in the best way. A man, meaning a world leader, and he's a man. He's not a god. He's a man. And so, as a man, you make mistakes sometimes in the world. I feel that the world forgot that we were on the brink of a depression in our country, and that, you know, nobody knows if we were going to be having breadlines. That may be an exaggeration, but he was able to stop that from happening. And then as soon as it happened, everybody was like, well, they forgot. And I think that it's a difficult job, and I think that his next 4 years are going to be even more successful for our country, and that people are going to get back to work, and it's going to be a really good thing that he remained in office. I feel very strongly that he will remain in office. I'm not being, overly confident about it, but when you look at the other party,
I think
I'm just saying.
That says everything, doesn't it? One last question. Your first show was Marriage Advice, how to get married to the right guy, your very first show. You never got married. You said you're not the marrying kind. What's the marrying kind?
That's a good question for the women of India. There's a lot of marrying kinds over here. I never got married because I live in a country and a culture that allows me to have the choice. If I were going to be married, I think the person that I've chosen to partner with over these years would be a wonderful person to do that with. I think that had we gotten married, we probably would have been divorced by now. And he would agree. I'm not saying that disrespectfully. He would agree because I really am my own woman. And I don't really conform very well to other people's ideas about who and what I should be. And, being married calls for some conformity. It does. Mm-hmm. And I think our lives work very well the way we've set it up. But that's for us. And I'm not saying, I have great respect and now I would say admiration for what I've seen in this country, for the way women are able to be married, what do they call it, and develop a love marriage.
Arranged marriage.
Arranged marriage,
yeah.
And because many people say, oh, we were in arranged marriage, and now we're in love marriage. I have great respect for your ability to do that, because I wasn't, your ability to do it, not mine. But because I wasn't raised in this culture, that's not even a part of the way I think. So I think, based upon who I am right now, that would be very hard for me if somebody were going to arrange a marriage for me. That'd be very difficult for me at this time. Although I think I'm too old now, right?
No. Is she too old?
Yeah. No, don't you pass a point where nobody's arranging anything anymore? Where the arrangements are over for you. Nobody cares whether you get arranged or not, really. No, I don't think, So I never did, because it wasn't for me. I was engaged for a short period, and I think what I wanted is what everybody wants, certainly a lot of women. And I think that was my 30s. I wanted to know that he cared enough about me to want to marry me. But as soon as he asked me, I started to get, my girlfriend Gail said, as we were talking, they were talking about doing a shower for me, and I said, please don't do a shower, please don't do a shower. And she said, why not? I said, because I don't just have cold feet, my feet are in a bucket of cement. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can go through with it. So it wasn't for me.
Well, I think you summed it up best when you said you are your own woman. You've lived on your own terms. It's been an absolute delight and honor to talk to you. Can we please say thank you to Oprah Winfrey? Thank you. And ask her to come back again. Can we please say thank you? Thank you.
What a great job. And no piece of paper?
Thank you very much.
You're a brilliant girl.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oprah. Thank you, Barka. Can I ask you all to just sit down, continue to stay seated, watch this. There's a quick photo op. Everybody at the back, keep seated. Thank you all very much. While Oprah leaves, can I ask you all to continue to sit?
You have to come back and ride a camel.
Okay. You have to come back to it.
Okay, I'll come back and ride a camel. Yes. I'm staying. I'm going. She's staying. I just want to. She's going to come stay.
I would.
Everybody, bye. Thank you.